The views and opinions expressed on the Nova Society are those of the panelists and guests and do not necessarily reflect the views or opinions of the Phoenix Research Institute or any institution which any panel member is associated. Reproduction or dissemination other than for the purpose of education or information without the express written permission of the Phoenix Research Institute or Nova Society Media is strictly prohibited. We'd like to welcome everyone back to the Nova Society, and for our first short episode here on Tuesday, we're going to be taking on the recent comments by President Trump, former President Trump, that basically stated that the Medal of Freedom was equal, if not better, than the Medal of Honor, and what we think about this statement. So let's listen in.
So recently, Donald Trump made statements about the Congressional Medal of Honor and the Presidential Medal of Freedom and compared the two and stated that the Medal of Freedom was greater because the Medal of Honor winners were either injured or dead. So my question to you, and I'm going to start with you, Mark, are the two medals equal, or is one a higher honor than the other? And so go ahead and we'll start with that.
I'd say that you're comparing apples and oranges. The Medal of Honor is for the military, and the Medal of Freedom is for civilians. One is for courage under fire and bravery in wartime, whereas the other one is for maybe something you did civically that bettered the country. The problem with the Medal of Freedom is it's sometimes given out to people that you kind of ask yourself, what did they do? They may be just top donors. Rush Limbaugh comes to mind that was given this. But those that get the Medal of Honor, that is very heavily scrutinized by the military as to who gets it. And it's given out a lot less. So for me, I'm saying the Medal of Honor is probably is definitely, in my mind, the higher of the two.
And Scott, what are your thoughts about what Trump said?
I really don't want to take the bait. I think that Trump says idiotic things to get attention, and we should just ignore it. So could we move on to the next segment?
You think that comments like these are going to hurt Trump with the veteran community? And honestly, would this have an effect on the election?
I think it's just Trump being Trump. I think that everybody understands who Trump is, and there are some people who like it. Like I have a friend who's a big Trump supporter, and he loves it when Trump says stuff like this. And it doesn't seem to matter to him that he's insulting veterans. He doesn't seem to care that he dissed POWs when he went after McCain for being a hero who was captured. He doesn't seem to care about any of that. And he says, why do you always get upset when Trump says these silly things? And in a sense, he's right. And I think he does it for attention, and I'm not willing to give it to him. That's all I have to say about that.
Got it. Thank you. And what do you say about, Mark, I'll go back to you. Should the Harris campaign focus on these statements?
I don't think they should. I think this is the punch that was never swung, that was never delivered. This is, to me, I would say to the previous question that this is going to hurt you with the veteran community, because they really do have an investment in this, and I totally agree with Scott. It's Trump being Trump, and it is an attempt. Sort of like when he said that, Kamala Harris just turned black. He says something outrageous to be able to take back the news cycle. And the only way he can do it, since he hasn't got policy and doesn't seem to be able to put a coherent sentence together sometimes now, is to say something totally outrageous. And I think that I totally agree with Scott. This was something to be outrageous, Trump being Trump. This shows the idea of dynamic of having a president that is on A&E. where they're it's a reality TV show, and he treats it just like that. I don't think Harris' campaign should focus on it simply because the veterans already know. You're not going to be able to drive this home. And the more you try to drive it home, he's going to try to explain it. He already did try to explain it once, and it really didn't go very well. I mean, the person he was talking to, he was basically sucking up to a really huge donor. Oh, she's still alive and she's still a beautiful, lovely person. That's all it was. It's a suck up. It degrades the medal. In my mind, it degrades the Medal of Freedom, because there are people that have received it that really, really deserved it, that really had a contribution to this country. Not Rush Limbaugh, plain and simple. I don't know the woman, this big donor. I don't know what her contribution is. But again, this is one of those things. It's sort of like giving out ambassadorships that presidents are able to do. And I don't see that. That's why I see the Medal of Honor being far more important, because there are documented proof of what you did in combat, not only for your country, but for your fellow service people. And again, I think that the service people, they see this for exactly what it is. I know I saw today Mark Kelly came out and bashed about it. A few of the generals that were on Trump's staff have come out and bashed on about it. Everybody knows it for what it is. So I agree with Scott. It's, to me, shot in the foot. Is it going to help him? Nope. Can it hurt him? Possibly.
Then what about somebody like, for instance, J.D. Vance? How does he try to spin a comment like that? Because he has actually done combat service.
Actually, he hasn't done combat service.
He has not.
He was a correspondent.
Ah, okay.
I mean, if he did combat service, so did Dan Rather.
Okay.
Basically, he was a correspondent.
Even worse, I think J.D. Vance's job was to write captions on photographs that they were sending back to the Stars and Stripes and stuff like that.
Right.
Okay.
In an office.
Yeah, to say that
in the rear with the gear,
he's definitely in the rear. But yeah, if J.D. Vance, let's face it, when the comment was made about Kamala Harris being Indian and Black, you would think that J.D. Vance's cackles would get up a little bit, because his wife is mixed race, his children are mixed race, and he doesn't seem to have the Chaconies to stand up and say, wait a minute, you can't be saying that because you're talking about me, and which is exactly what he's doing. Trump's talking about J.D. Vance's family and dismissing it. So sometimes whatever comes out of Vance's mouth, you got to take with a grain of salt, simply because he's just not willing to stand up and stand up for his family even. And that's sad. If he won't stand up for his family, how much do you think he's going to stand up for your country?
Yeah, that's an excellent point. Do you think that any of these statements that Trump is making about the Medal of Honor and the Presidential Medal of Freedom, are those going to hurt him with any of his donors?
Could very well be, if he's got military donors, I would think.
Scott, do you have any thoughts to add?
I don't want to talk about the stupid things that the guy says. I didn't even want to use his name.
You shall not be named. We just start calling him Voldemort.
Look, here's the answer to the question you just asked. The difference between the Republican convention and the Democratic convention is incredible, right? I mean, I went to a concert last night, so I came back pretty late. I think they were finishing the roll call, and I saw some of the speeches. I saw the Obama speak, and I saw Bernie Sanders speak, and Bernie Sanders was followed by J.B. Pritzker. And so you had a guy going, we're going to take down the billionaires, and we're going to get them to pay their fair share of their taxes. And then the next guy comes up and goes, speaking as a real billionaire and not a fake one who plays one on TV. I can tell you that the only thing that Donald Trump has in abundance is stupidity, or some words to that effect. And then Michelle Obama gets up and just took him down with the most memorable phrase I think I've ever heard. Most of us will never be afforded the grace of failing forward. we will never benefit from the affirmative action of generational wealth. Whoa, what a great line that is. And that is taking down not just Trump, but taking down the inequality that this country has fostered since Reagan was president and is an enemy of democracy. And you see that democracy is an enemy of capitalism, in the words of Peter Thiel, who's now thinking about leaving the United States if Donald Trump and his handpicked boy J.D. Vance don't win, and how these billionaires look at the country so differently than we do here on the front lines of life. The Democratic convention has been overwhelmingly positive, has been incredibly big tent, right? Showing that diversity is not just black, white, people of color, even age, but it's also wealth, and that the Democratic Party can be a big tent party and have both a democratic socialist who wants to take away the wealth and destroy billionaires as a set, and a billionaire who inherited money from the Hyatt family, from the Hyatt hotel family, and is now the governor of Illinois, and is a very important person in the party.
So that's all the time we have for today's episode. The Nova Society is a production of the Phoenix Research Institute. We'd like to thank our sponsors for this episode. BH Conflict Resolution Services, a full-service dispute resolution firm offering expert and cost-effective mediation services to couples, groups, and businesses. BHCRS can be reached at www.bhcrs.com. We'd also like to thank our podcast partners, Buzzsprout, who hosts the Nova Society, Audacity, our editing partners, and Podkite, who does all of our analytics. iHeartRadio, where people get their music and podcasts, Apple iTunes, the largest source for music and podcasts on the internet, Spotify, the most popular source for the Nova Society. The Nova Society is available on all of these and other quality platforms. We'd like to thank all of our listeners. Without you, the Nova Society would not be possible. If you have a comment, question, or would like to be a guest on the Nova Society, we can be reached at nova.society.podcast@gmail.com. Always remember, the power of society is knowledge. So for Dr. Scott Gershworth, Dr. Priscilla Hobbs, Dr. Brooklyn Ann Weldon, and all of us here at the Nova Society, I'm Dr. Mark Bound. Be well, and we hope to see you again next time.